Ah,
Hi, I'm Drusilla.
this is just going to be a get to know Drusilla on social media since we're not really doing a get to know each other episode on the podcast. So
Okay.
just super casual. Okay. So, um, all right. So, Drusilla, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, that's too broad.
Broad.
Morgan, come on.
Okay. Well, let's just start with the basics. Tell me about just tell me the basics, like your family, where you live, that kind of thing.
Okay. So I grew up in Easley, South Carolina, just small town. It's in between Greenville and Clemson. And I am the next to the youngest of 10. So yeah, so my mom had 10 kids.
Wow.
Um, yes, I am. Yeah, next to the youngest, and I am now married and living in Atlanta, Georgia. I have one son and two stepdaughters, and one brand new grandbaby, and she is 8 months old.
What's her name?
Mila,
Neela. That's beautiful.
yeah.
Okay. Well, another broad question for you. Tell me, tell me a little bit about your spiritual path, your spiritual background, your what brought you to this point?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Baptist environment. Um, It wasn't a very strict, it wasn't like my mother made us go to church every Sunday or something. I actually enjoyed going and but was always curious a little more about religion and God and Jesus and all
Mm.
of that stuff. More curious, I think, than anything, in which I think that's how most kids are. And then as I grew older, as an adult, I always attended church every Sunday. I still do, which I think is really interesting because I don't think a lot of people in our, at least in our spiritual circle, actually attend a church anymore. But I do. And I find a lot of let's just say I don't find it too conflicting for me. There are some things that are conflicting. Um, and just for an example, is the whole concept of heaven and hell. I think that's probably one of the biggest conflicting things that come up for person. And but I enjoy the self um, personal salvation part of spiritual growth and learning about myself and managing and or managing with everyday life using spiritual tools.
Mhm.
That's pretty much how I sum up the spiritual classes and the spiritual growth that I take individually. And then attending church, I find communing with people on a different level and it's more Christ driven. And so I find it rewarding. I find both rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and it's nice to have that sense of community too, which we have
Yes.
online, but it's not the same as fellowshipping with people in person.
Yeah. And my pastor, I say he is your typical Baptist preacher on some levels, but he's very more personable with his message. And so that makes it easier as well. And I don't think I answered your question fully. So, my brother, I have two brothers that are ministers as well. And one of my brothers, who passed away in 2020, he actually introduced me to A Course in Miracles. And I think it was because I was talking to him about some issues and concerns in my marriage, and he said, "You know what? Have you ever thought about reading A Course in Miracles?" We had talked about um, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he and I, that was the first time we realized, that was the first time I realized that he read things outside of your typical, you know,
Christian literature.
Baptist preacher kind of stuff. Right?
Yeah,
And so yeah, we realized that we had that in common. And so it was just awesome because then we could have the conversations that you really can't have with a lot of people if they don't read those types of books or into that type of spiritual reading. And so he introduced me to A Course in Miracles about 10 years ago. And and then during COVID, I was just searching around for more resources, and I found Jennifer Hadley and started listening to her podcast and listened to it every day for about a year and a half. And I still do listen to it, just not every day. I kind of mix it in with some of my spiritual practices, but that's how I found my way.
I love that. I love that story about your Baptist minister brother introducing you to A Course in Miracles, because we've talked about that. I have a Southern Baptist background as well, and that does feel so foreign. It would be amazing for these two worlds to come together, but they do feel so removed from one another for most people, I feel like. So
Yeah.
thank you for that story. So what do you think, if you had to put yourself into a box, which we know that we don't have to, and sort of define for our audience your spiritual path in a nutshell? I mean, I know we got from there that you sort of do the church thing, the traditional Southern Baptist Christian thing, and then you've incorporated the A Course in Miracles teachings and what we're learning from Jennifer Hadley's ministry, Power of Love. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, or maybe you'd like to expand on, like, what's the difference in A Course in Miracles and Christianity, and what are the similarities? Is that too big of a question?
Oh, that is a big one. Well, for me, of course, religion, the word in and of itself to me means um, being heavy on things you should and should not be doing, outside of having a relationship with Christ. It also kind of gives you rules and standards to live by, more so than just being loving and kind, right? Like just being thoughtful and loving is really all that is required um, in spiritual growth, when you kind of boil it all down. Um, but they, in essence, it just is all the same. And to me, what I've come to understand, or what I believe, is that religion is still a good resource for people who may be starting out and need to be disciplined in certain ways about certain things um, that they do. So for me, I felt that I had reached a point where I wanted to learn more, or to have a more personal relationship, establish more of a connection to myself and my source, independent of that, of religious practices.
Yes. Beautiful. Yes. I love, in the very, I think it's the introduction of A Course in Miracles where it says all paths lead to God in the end. So
Yes. exactly. So I just think it's just different ways, different entry points.
Yes,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, for
Well,
sure.
let's take it back to Drusilla for a minute and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Are you, I don't want to glorify like capitalism and work, you have to work, but would you like to tell our audience what you do for work? Because I do think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so I started out in human resources. So I have a undergrad in psychology, which is also why a lot of this is really appealing to me. And I have to work really hard not to analyze and make spiritual work cerebral
Right.
for that reason. But I have a master's degree in human resources. So I worked in human resources for about 20 plus years. And then I got a my real estate license, which transitioned me out of corporate into working more independently. I've always been an entrepreneur. I've owned a beauty supply store and started my own HR consulting business. And so doing the real estate was not that big of a transition for me. And so I did that for the next few years. And then actually during COVID, I decided to embark upon what I always wanted to do, which was to be a filmmaker. So I created and directed and produced my first film, which was a documentary. Um, it started out being one documentary and ended up being a six-part docuseries. And episode one um, of The Unlearning of Us is out and actually can be seen on Tubi. And that just happened recently. So not many people know that. And I haven't even marketed them really at all. And there's a couple reasons for that. I am in the process of finishing the other episodes. And so that's a part of me that is saying I can market them all at the same time with the same money. So I'm just kind of all over the place with that. And whatever happens will happen. And so I'm not really sweating it too much right now, even though I would like to have a big chunk of money to to finish the other episodes, and if not, then I'll self-produce them and get them done, regardless. But the documentaries are on racism in America and kind of dissecting every part of of life as you as I live it. You know, the first episode is on police brutality. Upcoming episodes will be on uh, corporate America and what it feels like, you know, going through the whole corporate world and kind of assimilating in that environment. An episode is going to be on economics, the economics of racism and the impact coming out of slavery and how things still hasn't reconciled. Um, and then one episode on education, being Black and growing up in a world where everything is taught from a different perspective and what that feels like and all the I guess the fallout from that, if you will. And then let me see, what episode did I miss? I said education. Hmm. Oh, the Black Republican, which is basically looking at the history of the Black vote. And most people do remember that right before the civil rights, Black people all voted, or mostly all voted Republican. And just kind of understanding where that shift happened and what does that mean and what does the future of the Black vote look like.
Mm.
And then the final episode, and I don't talk a lot about it, but I'm really excited about it. It's going to be about unity and healing
Oh,
for everyone. And so that's the final episode, which I think is going to be the most rewarding, because that's really what I embarked on. It was like, I know where we are and the shit hit the fan in 2020, but how do we come out of this? And I think we come out by talking about all of those different aspects and then decide, okay, now that we are aware of the history of it, how do we now then take that and move forward, for healing this country? So that's the unlearning of us.
I love that. I got chills when you said the final episode, what it was about, and how you're bringing it back around full circle to like looking forward and a positive outlook. That's really, really beautiful. And I hope that you will share the link so we can share that just in case anybody's interested. We can maybe put it, link it somehow to our social media and our website and stuff so people can find it.
Yes, I definitely will. And so the plan is to finish this docu-series early 2023. And then I have four, well, actually three feature films and one TV series to work on once I'm done. But I am really committed to this. This is my first project and it's my baby. So I am committed to getting it done before I start any other projects.
Wow, you're such a superwoman doing so many things. I love it. And it's so inspiring when people change courses throughout their life. And I mean, I did the same thing for 17 years. So it's really I admire people who have the bravery and the courage to just change directions.
Yes, it's just so crazy though. And I just really try to encourage young people to just do whatever's in your heart because I know I told this story to a few people, but when I was 22 years old, I had all intentions of packing up my stuff in little small town USA and moving to LA to make films. And just so happened that my friend who was going to go with me and we're going to drive across the country, she backed out in the last minute. And I totally understood because it wasn't her dream. And then so I chickened out and I didn't go. So it took me 30 years to end up doing the exact same thing that I always knew I wanted to do anyway. So it's like I took the long way. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. What can I say?
Yeah. Yeah. But then you can't miss out on what's meant for you too. What a beautiful demonstration of that truth.
Yes.
I love
It
it.
was
Well,
always there, just waiting on me.
absolutely. That's so inspiring. All right. Thank you so much, Drusilla. Is there anything else that you can think of that you'd like to share with our audience before we close?
Just that I love to laugh. Oh my God. So when I was working on the church project over the last few months, there's these two ladies, Dolores and Patricia. And every time I see them, they're just laughing and laughing and laughing. And they just remind me of my friends and our circle. And I just think it's just so healthy. It's just so wonderful to just not take everything so seriously. It's like we have enough seriousness in our lives that if we can find a moment to just laugh out loud, it's just so beautiful.
Yes, it is. So beautiful. Okay. Thank you. I love you. And I will see you on Tuesday for our next episode.
Yes. Love you too.
See you
Well,
later.
you have a great weekend. Enjoy your beautiful new place. And we'll
Thanks.
see you Tuesday.
Okay. Bye, Drusilla.
Bye bye.